So I'm going to go ahead and dive in. And thank you, Heather. This is Heather Satterley. And Heather is going to be running us through Tinker Time. I think there may even be a second name of it there. But Heather is the Chief Innovation Officer for Growth Lab Finance as a Service. She leads the strategic initiatives of Satterley, powered by Growth Lab, by working with accounting firms, venture-backed companies, and medium-sized businesses to identify inefficiencies and other areas of process improvement. She's the co-host of Appy Hour, Advanced Certified Pro Advisor, and an Insightful Accountant Top 100 Pro Advisor, 7 years running, and a 2-time Top 100 category award winner. And your ears must have been burning yesterday because you were spoken of a lot in a couple of sessions that we had.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Zapier kept coming back up.
Zapier, yes.
Yeah, and I'm Gary DeHart. I'm the publisher of Insightful Accountant, host for Future Forward. And once I go through my kind of housekeeping items here, I will be off the screen and kind of man behind the curtain over here. So I would like to say thank you to our sponsor, BotKeeper. Artificial intelligence and machine learning have been top of mind for the accounting profession for quite a few years. That trend is accelerating within a very short time. Firms adopting technologies that make use of AI and machine learning will have just what they need to keep pace with their profession. Enter the BotKeeper operating system, the next evolution of the BotKeeper platform. It's a workflow management system for an accounting firm's CAS or bookkeeping practice that utilizes best practices we have refined over the past several years. With the BotKeeper operating system, you have the ultimate tool to efficiently manage your bookkeeping client base. Just a reminder, this is a CPE eligible session, and the same rules apply. You must be present for 50 minutes. You must complete the poll questions, and we will send you the certificate within about 48 hours. I'm going to try to do it this afternoon, but maybe not. And so if you do have any questions, we ask you to throw them in the chat or the questions panel. A link to the recording will be sent to you, and you can also find it on our YouTube channel, and I will put that in the link or in the chat as well. And I'll also drop the slides in the chat once we get rolling and I turn this over to Heather. So awesome. There you go. We do have some poll questions that we'll be posting up. And again, if you are CPE, looking for CPE, make sure you participate. I would hate for you to miss it. So Heather, it's all yours. Thank you.
So Gary, you're going to have to interrupt me for the polling questions because I don't have them in my version of the deck. So I just want to throw that out there. How many are you going to be doing?
Let me see what I have here. I have a total of 4.
4. Okay, so I will try to remember, but if you just interrupt me and just say, we need to do a polling question, then I'll stop.
Okay, well, let's go ahead and throw one of them up right now.
Perfect.
This will kind of help you know where the audience is. So what keeps you up at night? Is the big changes taking place in the profession, cybersecurity, impact of technology on the profession or on your business, shifting to advisory services? We certainly have heard for the past, 20 years, you got to go advisory. Maybe it's not 20, but that is certainly the push, right? And taking a lot of mind share. We'll keep this open for another 5 seconds, just so we can let Heather, so we can turn Heather loose and go ahead and get this wrapped up. Again, if you want CPE, you got to participate. So 3, 2, and 1, and I'll share the results with you.
So the big change is taking place in the profession. Love it. And there are so many. And then second is impact of technology, cybersecurity, and the shifting to advisory services. So interesting.
There we go. All right. Yeah. Thanks, Heather.
All right. Thanks, Gary. Hi, everybody. So nice to see so many familiar names in here. I always love spending time with you guys and sharing what I've learned in my practice and my career. So as those of you that have seen me present before, you know that I'm looking for questions throughout our session. I'm going to be talking, but I will also be keeping the chat and the questions panel open. So please keep your questions coming. So just a little bit about me. I am, as Gary mentioned, I've been doing this for a long time. I'm a CPA, I'm actually a relatively new CPA, but I've been an accountant for a long time. And about 15 years ago, I fell in love with automation. And so I started really focusing on integrating applications with QuickBooks. I'm a QuickBooks user, I've been a longtime QuickBooks user and pro advisor. And so there was nothing cooler to me than eliminating manual tasks that my clients were doing through the use of technology. So the big win that I had that really got me loving this so much was my first actually WebGility implementation with Avalara. And that was a long time ago, but that was huge for the customer. It made a huge impact in their business. And sitting there on that Saturday morning, pulling the trigger and having everything start to work was really amazing to me. And I got hooked. So that's who I am. What I'm going to be doing today with you guys is kind of talking about the methodology that I use myself and in my firm and with Growth Lab to assess the need for technology and understanding when to look for new technology, when not to look for technology, and then best practices when implementing it both internally in our firm and with our clients. So that's what we're going to be doing today. Our agenda is identify the need for an application, find the right application, and then we're going to talk about designing an effective implementation plan. So how do you create a plan for implementation that doesn't make everyone involved want to go run out of the building screaming? It really comes down to change management, right? So some apps are easy. Some apps you just plug and play, you're good to go. It's really not impacting your organization. And then there's other major transformations within an organization related to technology that really need to be very thoughtfully considered, planned, and then executed within the organization. So we're going to be talking about that today. And I would encourage you guys to share with each other through the chat, the good, the bad, and the ugly that you've experienced as I'm going through, because we are all in this together. And I think it's important to be real with each other and talk about how things can go really well and how things cannot go so well, because that's how we all become better practitioners. So that is, oh, it looks like chat is only available to me. Oh, bummer. All right. Well, then you guys are going to have to use the Q&A. So I'll be looking at the Q&A. All right. So, all right, you can tweet. Yes, Megan's saying that that you guys can tweet. You guys could totally tweet and start a channel. So you could start a hashtag. We could do hashtag Tinker with Heather. How about that? Does that work? Okay. Awesome. I love it. I love it. I love it. Okay. So all right, these are our learning objectives for the session today. We're going to talk about how to identify the need to find an app to automate a process, explain the steps needed to evaluate and choose apps for multiple options, identify the key components to a successful implementation plan, and finally, identify ways to reduce costs in your tech stack while maximizing profitability. So let's go ahead and jump into our first topic. So what are some of the common reasons that we look for an app? When we're recommending apps to clients and even considering whether to implement new technology in our own firm, it's important, like really, really important to recognize why you are considering implementing the app. So lots of our clients and friends and colleagues, they hear about apps and they get what I like to call, and I have a slide on this, but I'm just going to do the spoiler right now, the shiny new app syndrome. How many of you have fallen into this? Like I have. In fact, last week at Accounting Lab, during one of the sessions, somebody had said that I am an appaholic, and I believe that is actually true. I'm very interested in technology. But what I have learned is that I have to slow down, because if you go chasing after every new app that you see and every new amazing technology that comes along, you're not going to get anywhere fast, right? Because we are running firms. We are servicing our clients. We would like to have life outside of what we do within our practices. And so we have to be very intentional as professionals in when we invest our time and our resources in exploring new technology. So, as clients are coming to you, as you're starting to see, maybe you're spending time with Liz and I on Appy Hour and you're seeing new technology come in, it really boils down to, Why are you interested in this technology? And it could be because your client has expressed a need or a want during a conversation that you've had with them. So having a conversation and they say, I spent a lot of time doing this particular task. It would be really cool if somehow I could eliminate the need to do that within my life. It could be that you identify a need while completing client work. And I have a perfect example that just happened yesterday and today is I have a client that I have to create a board report for every month. And the board report, and you guys can all relate to this. I'm going to see a whole bunch of chatter coming in the chat in a minute, where you have to take multiple reports out of QuickBooks Online, budget versus actuals maybe, and I have to export them and then piece them together because they want to see the year to date to budget and they want to see the full budget for the year. And then we have some other things that we have to do. So a lot of times we're getting information from different reports and having to pull it in. And so I am in the middle of documenting a lot of our processes in our transition from Satterley Accounting Services to Growth Lab Financial. And I was putting together a report for a client. I'm like, okay, I have to teach somebody how to do this. And during that moment, I was like, I really should not have to show somebody how to piece together an Excel report. Like, we're beyond this. And so I spent the time setting up the report in LiveFlow, which was on Happy Hour a couple of weeks ago, which is a Google Sheets app that integrates with QuickBooks Online and allows you to build reports with dynamic QuickBooks Online data. And so I started building that out for the client so that we would never have to export reports out of QuickBooks and piece them together in Excel ever again. So that is a need where I'm going through my work and I'm recognizing that I'm doing the same tasks over and over and over again, which is causing time and also possibly errors, right? Because whenever you're keying things in, copying and pasting, you can have errors. When that happens over and over again, I start to realize, you know what, there's got to be a better way. And then it becomes apparent to me that it makes sense for me to invest the time and resources to find a solution to automate. Another reason you may want to look for a new app is something changes in an existing workflow. So, things are humming along, they're doing really well, but then something new is added. An example could be e-commerce. You have a client on e-commerce, they're selling on Shopify, and all of a sudden they decide they want to start selling on Amazon or eBay or wherever. Now you have a change in an existing workflow, or you have an addition that you need to now go and look for new technology to handle that particular process. Could be that an existing tool is discontinued or has become obsolete, right? So, an example of that could be, that you have maybe you have a client that's using QuickBooks Desktop and they're using an old integration process that integrates with QuickBooks Desktop. And now that particular app is going away and you have to find something new. And that's actually a really good time to look at the entire system for that client as a whole when you're moving forward. Or you're on Happy Hour, you hear about an innovation, and it is very, very clear that is going to improve your existing processes and provide additional benefits to you. And you're like, I want to learn more about this. So those are really common reasons that we look for an app, whether it's for ourselves or for our clients. Another reason that we might look for an app is something breaks. How many of you, has this happened to anybody? I'm sure it's happened to every single one of you where something's working really well and then it stops working. We had this really great app. I'm not going to name names, but you guys will know who it is, that did a really great job of fetching statements and documents from all these different places and putting it into one central place where we could actually get everything we needed to do the work that we want. And guess what? It started breaking a couple of years ago and it was really sad. And we had to start looking for other alternatives for that particular solution. And I think some of us are still looking for alternatives to that solution. So, when something breaks, it's a good time to evaluate your options and decide, is it time to go to something new or stick with the tried and true, right? So in some cases, you look at it and you're like, well, this is what was working. I'm going to fix it, right? And then keep status quo. Or you can decide, you know what, this is broken. We really need to really, really examine the process and then move forward. So has anybody had it where, have you ever had this happen to you where you see an app, you're at a show, you're on a webinar, and you see an app and you're like, oh my gosh, this is the best thing since sliced bread. And you get really excited about it. You go, you start a trial, you start kind of tinkering with it and going in, and then you get this overwhelming sense of disappointment that it doesn't exactly do what you need. That happens. That happens. Another thing is upgrades. Anybody ever, how many of you have iPhones or Androids? Have you ever been excited when your iPhone or your Android has broken and then it gave you an excuse to upgrade to the newest version and get all the bells and whistles? I've totally been there for sure. So absolutely. And it looks like everybody else is coming in and agreeing with me that they've been there. Yeah, the shiny new object thing is hard. So really with the broken thing, sometimes the thing breaking is that little nudge that you need to actually go through the process of reevaluating a process and a solution. Again, here's shiny new object syndrome. And I actually, when I went to go look for an image for this, I'm like, the holy grail. I feel like as accounting professionals, we're always looking for like that app that's going to do everything so that we can just, sign our clients up, get it set up, and then go sit on a beach somewhere with a cocktail, right? We want this holy grail of technology that's going to come in and do everything for us. Who knows? That seems to be what we're all striving for at this point. We'll see when and if that's actually going to happen. Shiny new object systems, these are, there's always something out there that's going to catch your attention. And one of the things that we have to be really, really careful with as professionals is not to go, chasing after every shiny new object, unless, of course, you want to start a webinar series or a podcast where that's what you do. You set aside time every week and you get to go chase off after the shiny new object, learn about it, and then tell other people about it. So that's one strategy if you're in that group with me where you just love to look at technology. So why do we buy the next big thing? Like when we're looking at technology, why do we actually make the investment to learn about it, make that change in our lives, and move forward? We want the best, right? We want the best new thing. We want the coolest new tech. We need it to work with something else, right? So it could be that, we're working with a particular application or QuickBooks, right? We're working with QuickBooks and we now need an application, an accounting program that works with some other app that's really, really integral to our clients' processes. And there's no integration there. That might be a reason for us to go and look for something else that kind of does the same thing, that's going to have that integration and then streamline the workflow. It could be that it's going to provide a better experience or better functionality, right? So, you have that as well. So as we're looking at technology, the things that are going through in our mind is we're looking at the cost, right? The cost of the product. And I'm not just talking about what we're going to pay for a monthly fee, but the cost of the actual change, right? Because there's a cost that we invest both in time, money, resources to actually make a big change in our firm. And we want to know as the professional, as the business owner, that that we're making a good investment. And an example of this is back in the fall of 2021, I made the decision for Satterley Accounting Services to switch from Google, our whole firm was Google, to Microsoft. That's a big change. That's a really big change. It was going to be very, very disruptive for our entire organization. And it was something that I didn't take lightly. And a bunch of you are probably going, what? Why, Heather? Why on earth would you switch from Google to Microsoft? Are you out of your mind? And the reason is that I attended a webinar with some of my colleagues and they showed Microsoft. And if you haven't looked at Microsoft in the last 5 years, I really encourage you to take another look at Microsoft Office 365 or Workspace 365. It has come it's really different from where we were 5 years ago. I know Jonathan Bello, you're on the call. He's been Microsoft all the way. Kudos to him because he doesn't have to change to anything and he maximizes all of the cool bells and whistles that are in the Microsoft environment. So when we looked at it and I looked at all the different apps that I was using to managed the firm, we had a whole bunch. We had ShareFile, we had Acuity scheduling, we had, we had Slack, we had Zoom, we had all these apps that I was paying for. And then I looked at Office, the new Office, the new Microsoft, and I realized that I could eliminate all of them. I could eliminate every single, well, not every single app, but a big, big, big chunk of all of the apps that I was using in my firm. And I realized that they were going to talk better to each other because they were within the same product, right? So the deep, deep integration between Teams and SharePoint and Outlook and, it's all connected. And when we saw what we were going to be able to build, it was clear that it was the right time to make that change in our firm. And so we did. We created a plan within the firm, and it actually took us 6 months to do the entire migration over. And the cool thing about Microsoft is that you can add components of it separately. You don't have to do it all at once. And that's what we did. So our approach was very intentional. We did work on it as a team, and that's really the best way when you're doing when you're looking at technology and looking at making changes, is to be very intentional and look at it as a whole system. How is this going to affect all the other different parts within my business or your client's business? All right. Okay. It's time for a poll. It's time for a polling question. So regarding leveraging apps in your firm, do you leverage them 100%? Have you not even thought about it yet? Or are you interested, but you're not sure where to get started? So we'll leave that up for just a minute, or a little less than a minute. Looks like I'm just looking at the Q&A. Eden's sharing that shiny new apps get me all the time. I have to watch it because where's the team and the clients at? That is so true, Eden. We're in a customer service industry, and we have to be really careful when we go chasing after apps, what that experience is going to be like for our clients. I think that's 100% true. And then, oh yes, I just saw this. I just learned that Fathom is being discontinued from QuickBooks Online Advanced. Time to look for an alternative. So what is that? That goes back to the previous slide when something is discontinued, right? All right, it looks like 54%, a little more than half of us are interested, but not sure where to start. So I'm going to help you there. 16% said, I haven't thought about it. And then 30% are doing the app thing all the time. So that's fantastic. All right. So has anybody seen this before? This is the innovation adoption curve. And I bring this up because all of us kind of fall into somewhere in this curve. And this curve is actually used by innovators, people who are product people and coming up with new products, to gauge how their product, a new innovation is going to be perceived by the people that are going to buy and use their products. So we have the innovators, which is all the way to the left, which is the really, really, the 2.5%. Those are the people that are on the cutting edge all the time, want to know what's going on. They're the ones that are maybe investing in new tech that's coming up into, and I'm trying to remember now what the name of it is, the startup platform, Kickstart. That's it, Kickstarter. So they're the ones that are on there all the time looking at what's new, and I'm getting in. I want to be the person that discovers the next Tesla or Apple Watch or whatever it is. So 2.5 of the population are innovators. Then we have 13.5% are early adopters. So these are people that have watched the innovators and like, this is really cool, and I want to get a head start. And these early adopters, usually the ones that get those really awesome lifetime deals on subscription costs. You know what I'm talking about, where you're talking to somebody and they're like, I'm using Dex, but I've used them forever and I have this amazing deal that no one will ever have again. The early adopters are usually the ones that get in on the ground floor of that. Then we have the next 34% of people that are going to adopt, and that's the early majority. So 34% of those people, they're adopting the technology. It's already been vetted by the innovators and the early adopters, but they're the ones that are really working with the app developers to give feedback and really make the app, once it goes into mainstream, right, what it's going to be recognized as, right? Then we've got the late majority, which after the innovators, early adopters, and early majority have vetted everything. The late majority is like, I'm in. All right, I'm coming in. I'm ready. I'm ready to do this. It's now been vetted. I can trust it. I've been able to read reviews. I can see that it's a solid app. It's been around for a while. That's the next 34%. And then finally, we have the 16%, which are the laggards. And the laggards are like, I am not changing anything in my life until I am forced to do so. So those are the people that were on Windows 98 until like 2010. And then somebody had to basically say, look, it's dead, Jim. You can't do this anymore and you're going to have to upgrade, right? So those are the 16% of the laggards. So the reason I have this slide in here is because you are somewhere on the spectrum, and it's okay. There is no judgment. I'm not saying that any one of these is better than the other, but it's important to understand where you sit and where you want to sit so that you can understand how you react to technology and to new technology. If your goal as a business and as a professional is to be on the cutting edge, you want to be somewhere in the early adopters, early majority, or innovator. I mean, depending on where you are. Innovators, they're big risk takers, right? They're the ones that are buying stuff before it's been vetted because like, this is really cool and I want to get in, but they're big. They have a big appetite for risk. And at the very end of the spectrum in the laggards, they have a very low appetite for risk. They're like, I am not changing anything until I know it's going to 100% work. And then the rest are kind of sprinkled in between that. So understanding where you sit on this adoption curve can help you in your strategy for adopting and pursuing new technology. So where am I? I am somewhere between probably the early adopters and early majority. Where you see that little heart, that's where I'd like to think that I am. I'm an innovator. I'm like trying everything new. And yes, I look at things, but I'm not an innovator. I don't go out and buy the next, the newest thing without, really vetting it and knowing that there's going to be a cost, a benefit to me. So I do need some runway of somebody having gone in and kind of checked it out and is able to say, yeah, this is something, Heather, that you should look at. So just understanding that I think is important for us. All right. So what's the problem that you're trying to solve? And, where I'm leading up to is, we have, why do we want to do this? We have the shiny new app syndrome. We've got, we understand the innovation curve, but what this comes down to is when you see new technology and you're looking at integration, you need to ask yourself, what is the problem you're trying to solve? And then you're going to start there. And you want to be looking at who, what, when, where, and why, right? You need to understand what's going on. What are the needs of the people that are actually going to be using the technology? What are the outcomes that they're going to want to see from the new technology, right? So for an example, if I have somebody that comes to me and they say, I'm spending a lot of time, going through expense reports, right, for my clients, and it's just taking me a long time to go through and make sure that everything's coded properly and that that the expense reports, before they can get approved, that they've been approved properly before I can actually go through and, make a payment to whoever the expense report is for. So when somebody comes to me and they say that, I'm like, okay, I'm listening. And then I start to kind of dig in to figure out, okay, what does that process look like? They're spending a lot of time, but why are they spending a lot of time? Right? So it could be, so who's involved? Identifying the players is really important. So who's involved? We have the people that are submitting the expense reports, right? We have the approvers, they're players in the game too. And then we finally have the poor accounting professionals like us that have to pull it all together and get it into the accounting system so that people can make decisions. So we also have to take a look at what is it? It's expenses. So we're dealing with receipts, right? We're dealing with receipts, we're dealing with general ledger accounts, we're dealing with payments to other people. We have to look at when, right? People want to get paid right away, but what don't they want to do? They don't want to have to dig through their purse to grab the receipts and put them somewhere. They don't want to do that. And then we have to understand why, right? And the why there is A, to get paid, and, and B, really to get the information into the system. So understanding what the goal is, what the end goal is for the client or for yourself is really important, because if we just look at one piece of it and not the entire process, we could end up going after the wrong solution. So for example, with this situation with the expense reports, what I'm hearing from the client when they say I'm spending too much time, right, trying to get these things approved and then get them into the accounting system, what I would ask is, okay, let's look at this. Tell me a little bit about how people are getting these expense reports to you. And they would tell me, what that process looks like. And maybe that process is that, the expense reports are incomplete. They're not attaching receipts, they're not following policy. We dig into the approver, and, with the approver, maybe it's like, well, the approver's not really sure, when they're going to get the expense report. They're getting them a lot of different ways, via email, being it left on their desk, whatever. And then for the accounting department, they're just stuck in the mud, right? Because they're relying on all these different, these two different buckets of people that just don't really do what they need to do. And then I ask, okay, so once you have everything, how long does it take you to get the information into the accounting system? And the accounting person says, oh, wow, that takes me like less than a minute, right? It's all this other stuff that's causing the problem. It has actually nothing to do with getting the data into the accounting system. So gathering that information, having the conversations with the people that are actually the people and the processes and the technology that are all part of that process, that's going to give you the information that you're going to need in order to really drill down to find out what is the solution you're actually looking for. And in this case, what I would say the solution that I would be looking for is something that's going to be able to easily allow the people that are submitting expense reports to, deal with their receipts, code them correctly, and get them to the approver very quickly. Have the approver look at it and be able to gauge whether everything looks correct, and then push it on to accounting. And so that's what I would be looking for in solution. We're going to dig in into that a little bit further in a few minutes. So defining the process goal. The goal is to get the whole thing organized, right? The goal is to get those expense reports approved into accounting quickly, right? The who's we defined, the what's we defined, and the when's we need to dig in a little bit. So how fast do we want to get these people paid? If they're employees, I think there's, laws that we have to pay attention to. So we want to define all of these components and within the process before we even start looking for a solution. Because if I hear expense report and I just go out and start looking for solutions, I don't feel like I have enough information to make a good, educated, informed decision. Once you have gone through and you have had these conversations, one of the things that I do in my practice is I map the process. So, and I do this visually. We do this in our team where I'm showing you a simple manual accounts payable process of how we get the information, where's the information coming from, who's involved, what happens when there's exceptions, writing all this stuff down. And you can do it in something like Lucid Chart, Smart Draw, Visio, or you can literally get a piece of paper and draw it out. I'm really excited about this. I just got this really new thing. Thank you, Sarah Prevost, for talking me into it. And Carmen, I got a Remarkable too. And so now I can just draw stuff out and then send it, and it'll it's really cool. So anyway, I don't care where you do it, but just drawing out who are the people. I use swim lines a lot. That'll be like, the little swim lines in Lucid Chart or on a piece of paper that says, here's the people. And then I can actually map the flow of information. And then I'm able to easily identify the bottlenecks. So if you see here, you're identifying the friction and the bottlenecks. Where are the vendor bills coming from? Or if in this case, if it was receipts, where are they coming from? Are they being emailed somewhere? Are they in somebody's purse? Like, what's going on? With the, this is an accounts payable process when we're talking about printing and mailing checks. And I hope none of you are printing and mailing checks anymore. Please tell me you're not. But if you are, consider the cost and the timing. So one of the things that I hear a lot from people is like, well, that's great, you're going to automate it, but how much is this app going to cost me? Is it, I'm doing all this manually, it doesn't cost me a thing. It's like, whoa, let's back up. If you're printing and mailing checks, you're paying for check stock, you're paying for envelopes, you're paying for a person to sit there and fold the checks and sign them and put them in the envelopes, and then you're paying for postage. So yes, you're paying for stuff, and maybe, you could get an app like Melio that's totally free and have them pay for the postage, right? So you want to be looking at the what is the cost of the existing process so that you're able to gauge what the cost savings is going to be in the new process. So understanding how long it takes and then understanding what happens next. So here it's like a bill goes on hold and then it kind of stops. It's like, well, then what happens, right? So mapping out the process is really, really helpful. You're going to look for places to streamline. So as we're going through and looking at the process, in this case, I'm using a numbering system to say, here's the steps that helps me to organize my thoughts. Again, getting this on paper or in a workflow mapping app is really helpful. And then what you're going to do is define the best possible outcome. So after you've gone through and you've analyzed it, you want to decide what's the best possible outcome. And for our expense report, I think the best possible outcome as the accountant, and I can't just think of myself here, but if I looked at it just from my point of view, it's like everything's going to be coded and ready so I can just put it into QuickBooks, or better yet, I never have to touch it. It just goes in and it does it for me, right? That's great. But I also have to think about what is the best possible outcome for the employee that's, submitting the expense report. Like if I give them something that's really hard for them to do, are they going to do it? Probably not. Right? If in the approval process, it's going to somebody that never looks at their phone and I choose a product where they have to go on their phone to approve, now we've got another problem. So it's important to look at it from all those who's point of view when you're defining that best possible outcome. You also want to identify the worst possible outcome. And here's one where we have our bookkeeper and client and they drive us crazy and we end up, choking them. Anyway, that to me is always the worst possible outcome, is that we lose it, right? So that's just a funny one. You guys can just laugh. Somebody laugh in chat so that I know that joke was not lost on the entire group. So, thanks. All right. And then the best, thank you, Kat. I appreciate it. And James. I love Karen's hearty, har. She's like, that was not a good joke. Our best possible outcome is that we've automated everything in the accounting world and we're sitting on a beach with a cocktail with our clients and neither one of us have to work, right? All right. So when you're defining the best possible outcome with this is the reimagined accounts payable process, right? We have it coming in, we have it streamlined. Let's go back to the expense. My slide probably should have been the expense report, which I do have a slide like this for that. Don't know why I didn't put it in here, but the best possible outcome is that we have an app that our employees can use that they can quickly take pictures or forward an email to that will automatically bring in the receipts and the expenses. It will it'll use OCR to recognize the vendor. It'll pre-populate the information. So there's very little data entry. And in some cases, maybe even automatically code it. And what if we were able to put in policies that say, if it's, from a restaurant and it's under $75, it automatically goes to the approver. That would be kind of cool because now we've made it easy for the employees. We could actually possibly eliminate a lot of what that approver has to do, right? Because if we're setting up policies that are automatically approving things, cool. And then it goes right to our accounting department and wait a minute, it syncs automatically to QuickBooks and I don't ever have to look at it. What? Yeah, that technology exists. So what I've just, walked you through is a scenario where we could take information, find the information, gather the information, look at the solutions that are out there, and then solve a problem in a really profound, amazing way. So what we're going to do now is we're going to talk about how do you get that information? How do you organize it so you can find the right tech? So you want to organize the needs and wants for the problem by priority. So you want to define the must-haves. And we were just doing this today because this is what we do pretty much every day. We define the must-haves of what does the client need, or what is the process, really, it's not even the client, what does the process need in order for it to be a successful automation? What are nice to haves? What are some of those bells and whistles that would make life easier, but are not absolutely necessary to it being a success? And then you always want to include ease of use. Is it easy for people who are going to be interacting with the technology to use? Is it going to be easy to implement? So how hard is it going to be to get it going, to set it up and get everybody trained and have it being, working well? What is the quality of the support? And to me, this is number one. If I can't reach support, I'm done. I need to know that I can rely on the support. And then cost, of course. And then what I recommend is using a scoring system to help prioritize. Now, some of you have probably seen this before because I've definitely presented it before. And I think it's a really great tool. We use this all the time. But this is my app evaluation worksheet. And I'm happy to send it to you. So reach out to me and I'm happy to send this to you and share it. You can start using it. What it does, and I'm actually going to switch over to the actual app evaluation worksheet. I think I may have said app inventory. I have another app inventory worksheet. This is the app evaluation worksheet. So what this allows us to do is we can make a copy of this for each one of the engagements that we're doing. And we're going to put in, based on the interview with the client's team, we're going to go ahead and we're going to put in what are the must-haves for the technology, right? So it could be, here we're talking about expense apps. So we could say approvals, sync to QuickBooks, auto import via email, customizable notifications, payments via ACH or check. And then down here, we have the nice to have. So ability to set rules for coding of vendors and the chart of accounts. We could set our budget. What's our budget going to be? And honestly, the budget could be down here under a nice to have, or it could actually be up here under a must have, because a budget's a budget, right? So if a client says, I can only afford $75 a month for this whole solution, that should be in the must haves. If they're like, let's see what we come up with and we have a pretty wide budget, then you can put it into the nice to haves. So I kind of gauge that depending on what I'm looking at. Then what you do is once you fill this out with the client, then you can go out to apps.com or Google, and we're going to talk about this in a minute. You're going to put in the name of the app that you're evaluating, and then you can go through and you can rate it. So I'm happy to share this with you. The importance column here, 10 is a must have. It's a 10. That means must have. If it's anything less than a 10, it's not, it's out. With the nice to haves, you can set what the value is from 1 to 10. So if it's something like, I hope that the interface is green, that might be a 1, right? Or as if you're looking for, the ability to set up rules for coding, like that's an 8. Like we really want it, but if it doesn't have it, that's okay. We're still gonna, it's still viable. And then you're just going to go through and you're going to put in yes or no's under each app. It's going to score it. If the score for the must-haves is less than the total over here, it's going to say, nope, this is not a viable solution. Don't waste your time even looking at it, right? And then if it says yes, then you can move down below and you can start looking at the nice-to-haves to kind of gauge where do they come up with these nice-to-have features. Now, what I will tell you is that this is a tool and not the holy grail of deciding what apps to use. This is a tool when you're looking across multiple apps, and you can add as many columns as you want to basically gauge what, which ones you should actually start really, maybe getting a demo with and going through and really, really investigating as a viable solution. So it's a way to narrow down the prospects of the solution. So this works really well for us. It saves me time because, if I have one, I can eliminate a bunch of apps pretty quickly. All right. So that is our app evaluation worksheet. Once you've gone through and you filled that out, now you're able to go and look for the apps. So if you guys are QuickBooks Pro advisors, then you can go to apps.com, apps.com. There's over, I think, 700 apps on apps.com now. All of the apps on apps.com are vetted by Intuit, which means that it goes through the developer program, and they look to make sure that the security is compliant with the standards that they've set. And the app does what it's supposed to do. Now that's kind of loose, right? Because for accountants, an app can do what it says it does, but from an accounting standpoint, it could not do what we expect it to do within the QuickBooks data. So those could be two different things. And it's up to us, if we're recommending technology, to go through and vet it to make sure that the data is presenting in our accounting system the way that we expect it to, and the way that works for, for the accounting workflow. So you can go and search for apps at apps.com. Other ways that you can find apps is you can Google. That's like my number one way of finding apps, is I go to the Googler. There's also a bunch of engines out there. Capterra is one. Just be careful when you're looking at some of these apps, these app databases, because they're paid. The people that are on Capterra, they pay to be on Capterra. So you want to be a little careful there. There's also some apps out there, or there's some engines out there like Apps Advisory is one that I'm thinking of, where they actually do some of the vetting themselves. So you can actually, it's a paid service. I think they do have like a freemium membership, and it's Apps Advisory Plus is the name of it, Apps Advisory Plus. But they do a great job of vetting apps. So you can take a look at that as well, or you can come to Appy Hour and watch a demo. So once you've gone through and you've organized your search results, you're ready to start vetting. Evaluating your apps, your best practices, start with a demo or trial. So just go out and start a trial. If, in some cases, an app doesn't have a trial. In some cases, I've walked away from the app because I'm like, I'm not going to have my client pay for something that I don't know if it works. Or you can sometimes you can just take a demo. You can try the app without connecting it to QuickBooks first. You can do that. I typically want to connect it to QuickBooks. So I actually have a couple of QuickBooks test companies. If you're a Xero user, you could do the same thing and just have some Xero test companies where you can connect an app in to get an idea and do like a proof of concept to make sure that the data is going to present and it's going to have the functionality that you need within the accounting system. So those are best practices to actually getting started. I was lucky because I got in on the 5 for 5 for QuickBooks, right? So I have a $5 a month QuickBooks that I can play with. If you don't, just take out a trial, take out a 30-day trial. You can do that for free. And then I think now they take a credit card. So you've got to put a little note in your calendar to say, cancel. But yeah, or use Divvy and do like a burner card with a zero budget. I know I'm devious. Put that in. And then when it's done, it can't charge the card. So those are ways to start the trial to do that. You could also, if you want to get data into QuickBooks, and I'm sorry, Xero people, there's probably a way to do this, but I don't work with Xero. For QuickBooks strategies for getting data in, if you use QuickBooks Desktop, you can actually get the sample companies, and they have data in them. And here's the trick: go back 5 years. So it's 2022. So you'd probably go back to 2017 or 18. And that will have transactions that are dated in 2022, 2023, or 2021, 2022. And there's 12 different industries. So you can basically open up one of the samples, turn off the sample flag, and then convert it to QuickBooks Online and start playing with apps. So that works really well. To turn off the sample flag, and I don't have it open, so I'm going to have to say it, but reach out to me I wish I had this up ready to demo, is when you go in, there's up at the top, there's the tools menu, right? And it's not the tools, it's the help menu. And you go down to tools. And when you click on tools, there's going to be there's going to be about QuickBooks, and you put in this is how it is. Go to help, go to about QuickBooks. When it comes up, press Control 999. Control 999. I'm going to throw it in chat. Control. Oh, you guys don't have chat, so you're just going to have to remember Control 999. And then what you're going to do is go back to that menu, and then you're going to see a new tools area at the very bottom. And at the tools area, there'll be a place that says toggle sample flag. You can turn the sample company off, so it just becomes a regular desktop company. Then you can convert it into QuickBooks. All right, documenting your testing as you're going through. You can use that app evaluation worksheet to document what you're finding. I usually put notes. Sometimes I'll do a video if I'm working with my team. Both of those work. You're going to go through and narrow it down. And then other things that you need to consider are, how will the new app affect other processes and apps in use? So if I'm I'm getting a new app, I need to be thinking about, are there any other apps that the client has that this app could not play well, like maybe they won't play nicely together? Will an existing app become obsolete? So when I was looking at Microsoft and we were looking at all this great functionality, I was going through in my head going, well, if I do that, I can get rid of this app and this app and this app. So in some cases, you implement new technology that now is going to replace the need for an additional app. And what does that do? That boosts the budget you have for this new technology, because now you're getting rid of a subscription, and that brings more value to the engagement with your client. Will an existing connected app need to be changed? So is it going to affect the way that an existing app is connected? An example could be like if you're using Avalara and you connect something new, is that going to affect the way that you have Avalara or TaxJar or something set up? So sometimes these apps are connected in ways that you don't really anticipate. So understanding the whole ecosystem is really important. And then be aware of changes coming in the future that will affect the workflow. Okay, so make sure you're looking if you can, and not every app developer does this, but a lot of times you can go on the website and they'll have actually a roadmap of where they're going, and just take a look at it. And then the other thing is, if you have an app that's not working, before you go find a new app, reach out to the developer and say, hey, I need this functionality. Is this something that's coming soon? Maybe it is. I mean, that's happened to me before, where I went in and I implemented something new, and like a week later, what I was looking for in the old app came out, and I'm like, oh, I just went through all of that and I really didn't need to. Pitching a solution to a client. So talking about, implementing for yourself, you have to pitch to your team. But if you're trying to talk a client into adopting an app, you want to focus on the benefits, right? And focus on the benefits to them. Like that's the key. Focus on the benefits to them, not the benefits to you. Honestly, if they're friends with you, they're going to care, but honestly, your clients just want their work done. Quantify the cost savings. So go through and figure out how much time, what is the dollar value of the manual process, so that you can show them you're spending, for every check you send out in accounts payable, you're spending, $5.20. This app is free. Clients are like, oh, okay, sign me up. Find a champion for change within the organization, and then keep it real. The worst thing that you can say to a client is, oh, this is going to be a piece of cake. It's easy. I'm going to tell you, I do a lot of this. It's never easy. There's always something that comes up. And I always tell my clients, we're going to have bumps in the road, but we'll talk about them. We'll work through them, and I'll be there for you. I'm not going to leave you high and dry. We just need to make sure that we're staying in communication. And they respect that. They respect that. Absolutely. I think it's time for a polling question, and we're ready to wrap up. So, do you want to do another polling question now? And then,
Yeah.
and I think, okay,
One
great.
more put up. Here we go. So BotKeepers are a sponsor. We told you a little bit about them on the front end. Question is, would you like to hear from them? And again, this is one of the poll questions. If you're looking for CPE, you've got to participate, else you won't get it. So I think we only had three polls in this session. So hopefully you participated in all of them.
Awesome.
We'll keep this open for a few more seconds so that any last minute stragglers can participate. All right, we'll close it out in 3, 2, and 1, and then we will need to wrap this up. Heather,
you got it. I just have a couple more slides, so I'll go through them quickly.
Well, I've got the next one in 5 minutes. So
okay, you got it. So designing an effective implementation plan real quick. As I said, designate a champion, get everyone on board, expect those hiccups and allow time for them, and also utilize support. You don't have to go it alone, and also set milestone dates. This is really just looking at what we talked about before a little bit differently. Who's involved? What are the steps? What are they doing in dependencies? But on the new process end, we looked at all of this when we're talking about defining the existing process. Now we're going to reevaluate it on the new, what's going to happen during the implementation, and make sure that we're coordinating it well. And it really helps to have a project manager. That could be you. It could be somebody else in your firm that's driving this. And then tools that you need to manage the implementation: task management, centralized communication, track schedule and progress, and manage notes and feedback. Make sure you're keeping that timeline realistic. Don't box yourself in. Done it, not fun. Make sure that you're giving yourself enough time for hiccups. Our tech stack for this type of work, we use Google Workspace. I know, we're working on that. We just got acquired and they're on Google. So I'm on it. Microsoft. Zoom, Scribe, How, Asana, and Lucidchart. Those are the tools we use when we're going through implementations with our clients. So also, I would just say utilize no-code, low-code apps to create synergy in your workflow. So if apps aren't connecting automatically, you can use any one of these apps to help you do that. And we use actually most of these in Satterley powered by Growth Lab to round out when there isn't an existing integration between our apps. So I know we kind of rushed to the finish line, but I'd like to thank everybody for joining us, and feel free to reach out to me. Happy to answer any additional questions you might have.
All right. Well, thank you, Heather. Thank you for sharing your deep knowledge on this topic. Thank you for everyone who was able to join us today. Hopefully we'll see you in about 2 minutes at the next session. Thank you all. Appreciate it.
Bye, thanks.